Welcome, everyone. Many adults study English for years. They memorize vocabulary. They read books. They watch videos. But when the moment to speak arrives, their mind suddenly becomes empty. The words disappear. The sentences break. And confidence slowly fades. If this has ever happened to you, you are not alone. And while you listen to this story, you can also practice understanding English slowly. This is the story of someone who felt exactly the same. A young man who spent years avoiding English because it made him feel small, uncomfortable, and unsure of himself. But one unexpected moment changed everything. Not in a classroom, not in a language school, but during an ordinary day that suddenly became very important. And strangely enough, the tool that helped him change his life was something very simple. A quiet conversation with an AI called ChatGPT. This is not only a story, it is also a guide. A guide that shows how one person slowly built confidence, one sentence at a time, and how you can begin doing the same thing today. My name is Liam. I am 22 years old, and I grew up in a small town where English was never part of daily life. In school, we studied it, of course. We memorized grammar rules. We filled notebooks with vocabulary lists. But real communication never happened. English was something that existed inside textbooks, not inside conversations. When class ended, the language disappeared from our lives. So after finishing school, I slowly stopped thinking about English. I told myself it was not important. I told myself I would probably never need it. But deep inside, I knew something else was true. I was afraid of it. Afraid of sounding foolish, afraid of making mistakes, afraid that people would laugh at my pronunciation. And fear is very good at convincing us to avoid things. So for years, I avoided English completely, until one afternoon that I will never forget. It was a rainy Tuesday. My younger sister had an online appointment with a doctor from another country. The doctor was a specialist who could help her with a medical problem she had been dealing with for months. Because my parents were busy, I sat next to her during the video call. The doctor appeared on the screen and smiled politely. Then he started speaking. In English, slow English, clear English, but still English. My sister looked at me and whispered, "What did he say?" I understood some words, but not enough. I caught pieces of the conversation. Treatment, condition, follow-up. But the meaning between those words felt like a fog. The doctor asked questions. My sister looked at me again. I tried to answer. My sentences were broken. My mind was racing. I felt embarrassed, confused, and frustrated at the same time. That moment lasted only 15 minutes. But inside my mind, it felt much longer. When the call finished, my sister simply said, "It's okay. We understood enough." But I knew the truth. We hadn't understood enough, and I felt responsible. That evening, I sat alone in my room. Rain was still falling outside, and for the first time in years, I opened my laptop and searched for something simple. How to practice English alone. I expected the usual answers. Watch movies, read books, listen to podcasts. But one suggestion appeared again and again. Practice conversations with ChatGPT. I had heard about it before, but I had never tried it seriously. That night, I decided something important. I would stop waiting for the perfect moment. I would start with the smallest possible step. Just one sentence. So I opened the app. The screen was empty. Just a simple box waiting for text. My hands felt slightly nervous as I typed my first message. Hello? My English is not very good. Can you help me practice simple English? I pressed send. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a reply appeared. Hello, Liam. Of course I can help you. We can go slowly and practice together. That sentence may look small, but in that moment it felt powerful. There was no judgment, no pressure, no classroom, just a quiet conversation. For the first time, English felt safe, and that was the real beginning. The next morning, I decided to create a simple rule. Every day before opening social media, I would spend 15 minutes practicing English. No excuses, no complicated plans, just 15 minutes. I started with something very simple. A short morning diary. I wrote a few sentences about my day. The first one looked like this. Today I wake late. I drink tea and I feel sleepy. Of course, it was not correct. But ChatGPT answered kindly. Good try. Here is a corrected version. Today I woke up late. I drank tea and I felt sleepy. Then it explained something important. Wake becomes woke in the past tense. Drink becomes drank. Feel becomes felt. These were grammar rules. But they did not feel like grammar. They felt like part of a real conversation. Every day I repeated this small exercise. Write 3 sentences. Read the correction. Speak them aloud. At first, my voice sounded slow and uncertain. But after a few days, something interesting happened. My mouth became more comfortable forming English sounds. And that small change made me want to continue. A week later, I tried something new. I asked ChatGPT to give me 5 useful sentences for daily life. Simple sentences. Things people really say. Examples like, I'm running late. Give me a minute. That sounds good. I'm not sure. Let's try again. I practiced saying them out loud. Then I tried to build my own sentences using the same structure. Sometimes they were wrong, but every mistake became a lesson, and every correction became a small improvement. Instead of memorizing long vocabulary lists, I was learning language that I could actually use. Little by little, English stopped feeling like a school subject. It started feeling like a tool. After 2 weeks, I realized something important. Understanding English in my head was easier than speaking it with my voice. So I created a new habit. Mirror practice. Every morning, I stood in front of the mirror and asked myself simple questions in English. What did you eat yesterday? How are you feeling today? What are your plans for tomorrow? My answers were not perfect. Sometimes I paused. Sometimes I searched for words. But I continued speaking. The mirror became my first listener. It felt strange in the beginning, but slowly my confidence grew. Another technique that helped me a lot was role play. I asked ChatGPT to simulate everyday situations. For example, ordering food in a restaurant. ChatGPT acted as the waiter. I acted as the customer. Hello, what would you like to order? I would like a burger and a cup of tea, please. Sometimes my sentences were wrong, but corrections came immediately. And because the situation felt realistic, my brain remembered it more easily. Later, I practiced other situations. Buying a train ticket, checking into a hotel, introducing myself at a meeting. Each role play became a rehearsal for real life. One of the most important moments came about a month later. I noticed that sometimes I was thinking small thoughts in English, not translating, just thinking. Simple things like, I'm tired today. This coffee is good. I need to finish this work. These thoughts appeared naturally. That was the first sign that English was becoming part of my daily thinking. And that feeling was incredibly motivating. Of course, mistakes were still everywhere. Sometimes I used the wrong words. Sometimes my pronunciation was unclear. But I changed how I reacted to those mistakes. Instead of feeling embarrassed, I started collecting them. I created something I called a mistake journal. Every time I noticed an error, I wrote it down. For example, I am boring. Correction, I am bored. Small differences like that can change the meaning completely. Reviewing those mistakes each week helped me avoid repeating them. And slowly, my sentences became more natural. After 3 months of daily practice, something surprising happened. One afternoon, I was helping a tourist who was looking for the train station. He asked a question in English. Normally, I would have panicked, but this time the answer appeared in my mind automatically. Go straight for 2 blocks, then turn right. The station is next to the park. The conversation lasted only 30 seconds, but when it ended, I felt proud. Not because my English was perfect, but because I had spoken without fear. That moment proved something important. Progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it appears quietly during an ordinary day. Today, my English is still improving. Fluency is not a destination you reach once and then stop. It is a process, a habit, a daily practice. But the biggest change was not grammar. It was confidence. The confidence to speak, to try, to continue even when mistakes happen. And that confidence started with one simple message. Hello. My English is not very good. Can you help me practice? If you remember only one idea from this story, remember this. You do not need perfect grammar to start. You do not need expensive courses. You do not need to move to another country. What you need is daily contact with the language, a place where you can practice without fear. For me, that place was ChatGPT. And for you, it can start today. Just open the conversation, write one sentence, speak one reply, and take the first small step. because sometimes the biggest changes in life begin with the smallest conversation.